The Pit Press Podcast.
Reinholz launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico wins it.
Kenny Thomas blocks. Gibson hustling down. He has some room. And he gets it. Oh, long three. He got it. Oh, my goodness.
Kendall Williams from 35 feet. For the win. Snell got it. He got it. Wow. With 1.8 seconds remaining.
Great win. Played really, really hard. Effort was terrific. And to play that many guys and to not let up, you can play that style of play when you have that type of depth. This building is special, as I've said many times, but if you're playing that hard with these fans, I'd be surprised if we're losing 3 games like we did last year in here, because that fan base is so good and they fuel our guys as long as we play as hard as we did. We passed the ball great. 20 assists was terrific. And then we defended and we rebounded. That's what we talked about over and over again. And I know what Mash said. He said that I wouldn't play 3 guards and think that we could guard and rebound, and he did that. I figured it out. Questions?
I don't have any questions for Coach Pitino, Richard Pitino of the UNM men's basketball team. After that first win against Texas Southern, we didn't have any sound bites, so I apologize for that. My name's Ryan Tamori. This is kind of the bread and butter with how we started this 11 months ago, talking basketball, and we've grown. Now we're back to our old stomping grounds of what we were doing, talking about UNM men's basketball. I'm joined by Eric Malton, my business partner in creating the Pit Press. It's been a long time coming, but now we're back to what we did. I'm pumped for this. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. And you hit the nail on the head. This is definitely our bread and butter. I think I can speak for all of us now and pretty much all of Lobo Nation that basketball season's back. The buzz is back, and let's jump right into it.
He's a Lobo fan since 1970, and he's the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. Mr. Ed Nunez, Senor, how are you doing?
Doing great. No, Eric's right. A lot of excitement around the program, and glad to be back. And we're excited at this time last year. We started a little bit late when New Mexico was 5-0, and good opening win on Tuesday on Monday night, and so Monday night things up. I'm very excited for the game tomorrow night against St. Mary's.
Yeah, that game interrupted a fantastic Monday Night Football game between the Jets and the Chargers. Anyway, where to start? And I'm sorry that we don't have any clips of. I have audio from the post-game presser. I mean, the first thing I want to start with both of you, and I'll give my critique because I'm not an X's and O's guy. I just like the history of stuff. The defense was a focal point because, as Pitino had said last year, and I'm quoting him, the defense sucked, and the defense was atrocious to non-X's and O's guys like myself. I don't understand the X's and O's of basketball sometimes because my understanding of the game is if you have an open shot, you take it. Anyway, I thought the defense was much improved, and I'm going to give the PA announcer at the game the other night, our friend Bill Torres, who was my teacher at St. Pius. He texted me on Tuesday. He's like, I wasn't that impressed by this team other than JT Toppin. Again, I've said, I think over the summer, on paper, this team looks very, very good. It's a lot of pieces. Again, they have to play. This isn't the Heatles or the 2011 Philadelphia Eagles. After about 7 or 8 minutes, man, I felt like they just flipped a switch. They swarmed. They punched Texas, as Mike Tyson always said. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And I was it Johnny Jones for Texas Southern? That team's predominantly NCAA tournament. You can say whatever you want about them. This is an NCAA tournament team that came into the pit, and UNM kicked the crap out of them. I was very impressed with the defense. Quentin Webb with a couple blocks. I know, Ed, you wanted to mention him. And I'll swing it to you. You're the old school Charles Oakley, Bill Laimbeer type guy, I guess, per se. What did you think about the defense on Monday night against Texas Southern?
Thought they showed a lot of great energy. You mentioned JT Toppin. We were looking for that energy guy. We mentioned Josiah Alec is no longer with New Mexico. Mo Daisy, who was a decent defender in the post, is gone. So we're looking for that guy, and he's got great athleticism. That second jump, great explosiveness at the rim. You saw the hammer dunk, and he's going to put those down hard. I liked his energy. I like True Washington's energy. I thought the press, they went to a small lineup. The press, you got some turnovers, and they scored in transition. Quentin Webb's energy was impressive. I thought the fans got them really going. The pit energy was there in that opening game. So I thought the defense was very impressive. Coach Pitino said against New Mexico Highlands, they didn't guard the basketball well. I thought they did a much contesting shots, hands in the passing lanes, blocked a few shots, scored in transition off of steals. I thought the defensive intensity was very impressive.
Eric, I throw that same question as you. To you.
No, I thought the energy was great. It started right when that 6-minute mark that you had mentioned, just the overall energy. They definitely sped up Texas Southern. Texas Southern wasn't, I don't know if they weren't prepared for it, but it definitely sped them up and kind of put them in some weird and awkward situations. And I think the big question mark heading into this year was, how was the defense going to be? How are we going to limit the scoring from the other team? And I think they came out and, like you mentioned, Ryan, punched them right in the mouth. And the guy that they wanted to focus on, and the guy that we had mentioned in our pregame write-up, was that PJ Henry, who was the SWAC preseason player of the year. He was the guy that kind of came in mid-conference season last year for the Tigers and kind of carried them into the conference tournament, and then end up catching fire and ripping off 3 wins to win a SWAC championship, and ended up playing in that first 4 in Dayton. So they limited him to 6 total points, 3 of 14 shooting, and a lot of that could be just based on a whole team effort, right? I think they had a few different guys on ball defenders, kind of creating some havoc. House was all over the place. And then you had mentioned Webb, right? Webb came in with a couple blocks. And then Washington is definitely going to be that X factor on the defensive side. Got a lot of hands on some loose balls, was kind of in your face, real physical, and just brought the energy, man. And that bench is deep. And if they can do that day in and day out, and you have multiple guys, like 7, 8, even 9 guys playing double minutes a game, you keep those legs fresh and you keep that energy high at all times. So we'll see how they go, facing some tougher competition. I think the real test is tomorrow night. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Texas Southern shot 29.4% from the field, 29% from the field. Yeah, PJ Henry, who a lot of people in Patino's pregame press conference were talking about him. And PJ Henry, he was asked a lot of those questions. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. And he seemed to be the focal point for everybody. And I was quite shocked. I don't know if the altitude got to Texas Southern. I don't know. That might have helped. But, man, they looked – I was thoroughly impressed by this team, man. And I say it all the time. I'm the negative Nelly guy. And it was like last year, you are what your record is. And that St. Mary's win was still big last year. They beat a team that got to the second round. But I don't know what the bigger story was, and maybe you guys could interject there, if it was the defense or if it was the true freshman, True Washington, and JT Toppin. JT Toppin had 11 points, 4 of 6 from the field in 18 minutes, and he had 9 total rebounds, and his plus and minus was 25. I still don't know, even as a sports writer, I still don't know what the hell plus minus 25 is. The plus or minus is. Patino had said it recently that they didn't know how good he was until he got here, and they were like, whoa, this guy's really good. A couple of the other, George Scott said it when we had him on. They were like, whoa, this guy's good. This depth of this team, I'm quite shocked. I think Nelly Jr. Joseph within this offense and playing at this altitude is still probably a work in progress. But I mean, I'm talking about the freshman Eric. I posed that to you. What did you think of the two freshmen playing?
I thought they were great. Um, True Washington was a 4-star recruit coming out of AZ Compass in Arizona. Um, I watched him play over the summer, actually, in that national championship. I forget the name of the tournament, but um, his energy and the physicality. He's a big kid, and he's not afraid to get up in your face. And he definitely doesn't play like a freshman. I could tell you that. And then JT Toppin, I think that kid. The there's really no limit. The skill level is there. He's got really good hands, really good footwork, and his size and strength. Right, like that kid is not a freshman at all, and I know Patino has kind of referred to it a lot, just kind of keeping him a secret coming out of the Texas ranks out of high school. Um, don't tell anybody that he's coming to New Mexico because some of those big Power Five schools are going to try to poach him. And when we had Kurt Roth on, Kurt Roth was pretty blunt in his statement in saying that JT Toppin might not be a well-known name now, but that guy is probably the best NBA prospect on that UNM roster. And it clearly showed. Man, I was on the floor courtside, and you could just tell his demeanor. He wasn't scared, he wasn't timid, and sometimes he was pushing around some of those bigger guys for Texas Southern, which are all upperclassmen. So, man, if you can have him and Nelly, and then you have Emzil and a few other guys come in, Forsling even look good, right? You start to build a strong rotation there and get spell some of these guys some minutes. I'm not going to see a whole lot of drop off. So, Ed, what are your thoughts?
I thought you mentioned Toppin, and we mentioned the explosiveness and athleticism. We've had some 4-star recruits that have come here that have taken time to develop. They haven't played like 4-star recruits, and immediately JT Toppin, as you mentioned, he just jumped off the page. True Washington's athleticism, the same thing to go along with Donovan Dent. Donovan Dent actually hit 2 3-point shots on Monday, and that's a good sign because we weren't sure. That he's a slasher. That first step right is very quick. He gets in the lane. It's very tough to stop him. But seeing him hit those 2 3-point shots was very encouraging. But when Kurt Roth said that about JT Toppin, and you saw the physicality as a freshman, you mentioned that, Eric, pushing around upperclassmen that are stronger, supposed to be stronger than him. He's a freshman. Takes a little while. He's already got the body. I think I was impressed with the second jumps. It's the second jump and explosiveness, the hammer dunks. Hunter Green told me today he wants to take that rim down, when he slams. So I was really impressed. The depth, and if you look at it, a couple of things that as far as depth, Jamal Baker, 15 minutes. He didn't play. Hunter Green still thinks he's laboring on that knee. He's seen him a little bit, and he's not moving. And he thinks as good laterally as he thinks he will. He played 15 minutes. Isaac Mashila, he got 7 or 12 minutes, and we mentioned this on the podcast last night. It's kind of tough for him to guard guards in space. He's more used to playing inside. So the depth's amazing, right? For the first game, we saw the depth. We saw the impact that those two freshmen had immediately, and that was encouraging. I thought the buzz around the pit, the energy with the fans, and you're hearing it around town today. I was at the gym, and I was talking to Hunter Green, and some guy comes right up and says, "Hey, what are the prospects for the team?" You're seeing that buzz and the energy around town. It's one game. But Ryan and Eric, you both watched enough Lobo basketball to know sometimes when excitement is legitimate excitement, and again against an opponent that had been to the NCAA tournament. It's not as if they were the D2 team. They didn't look good against Highlands. This was a totally different Lobo team as far as energy and defensive pressure, scoring in transition. We mentioned active hands. Their shooting percentage was, you mentioned 29%. A lot of those shots, if you think about it, they're shooting late in the clock. Those shots that you're having to force up late in the clock usually aren't high percentage ones. So New Mexico did their job as far as shutting Texas Southern out. And again, tomorrow night's a whole different test. But the first game, they look very good.
I'm going to make 2 points. I think there's a lot of eyes. It's a cliche thing to say all eyes on, but there's a lot of eyes on Donovan Dent. You mentioned one of you guys mentioned that he hit two threes. And Patino's not sure if teams are going to challenge him. I think he said he was going to find that out. If I got that wrong, let me know. But I'll get your thoughts on Donovan Dent, and I'm kind of jumbling a lot of the topics that we're going to get to. You started 3 guards. Even I saw that. I was like, man, it's Amzil, it's Mustafa Amzil, Nelly Jr. Joseph, Donovan Dent, Jalen House, and then Jamal Mashburn. And I thought one of the crazy things, and nobody's really talking about, is the 2 guys that led this team last year seem to be an afterthought with what the transfers have done coming in. I didn't say that. I waited till we got into the podcast, or I was going to write something about that before I said anything to you guys, because Eric, I'll start with you. You kind of, I don't know if you feel that way. One, how do you think about Donovan Dent? Do you feel like that Jalen and Jamal are kind of like second thoughts with Amzil, Nelly Jr., Joseph, JT? I mean, you just start saying the names and you kind of feel like, man, this team really is loaded.
Yeah, well, I don't think that House and Mashburn are kind of being disregarded in that sense. I think it's really just the known, right? Like they're the two household names that are kind of floating around in the national media, and the one that's not necessarily kind of getting that national recognition right now, or was Donovan Dent. And everyone just realized that this kid is oozing with potential. His quickness, him being Mr. California basketball coming out of high school, and then him potentially seeing like an increased role with minutes, responsibilities this year. Patino is going to decide to go with that 3 guard lineup a lot of the time. I think that they're really tough to guard. So it's an easy point to kind of drive home with some of these national media outlets, and they're always looking for a new angle. And I think Donovan Dent's kind of like that perfect person to focus on. But man, when you got that 3-headed monster to focus on defensively for any team, I think St. Mary's is going to have their hands full tomorrow.
Ed, I throw that into your court. What do you think about Donovan Dent? And I don't think like I don't. What I was trying to say is I don't think that House and Mashburn are like being disregarded. It just felt like, man, like you've got these 2 stud guards and everybody's talking about Dent. That's all I meant by that. Wasn't any disrespect to them. But Ed, your thoughts on Dent, the starting 5, with the 3 point guards, and maybe my comment.
It was effective for Monday night. The Lobos struggled last year against the bigger guards with San Diego State and Nevada, hitting shots over smaller guards. We'll have to see how that lineup plays out the rest of the year. He does have some size he can go to. He's got depth on the bench. That's where Jamal Baker, I don't know defensively if Baker's up to the task right now as far as the way they're playing, D. But I thought the lineup itself, the energy, I was just impressed with the House didn't have his normal scoring game, but he's a disruptor. He was all over the floor. Mash, I thought that, I'll be honest, there was a couple of shots he took I thought were me shots, that I got to get my shots. I got to get mine. There's just a couple of them that I saw that I didn't think were in the flow of the offense, but that's those are shots he's going to take and he's going to make. I don't think you can say anything other than that. I saw that he did. Those are me shots, but they're going to come to the forefront. That New Mexico is going to rely on them heavily. They were 2 of the leading scorers in the conference last year. I don't, it's a year later. I don't think anything's changed as far as New Mexico still saying there are bell cows 1 and 2, or for sure. Those other players, though, complementing their talents. That's why everybody's like, hey, wow, did you see True Washington? Did you see Donovan Dent? Braden Applehands came in and hit, 3 threes, 4 threes? Hunter Green called that 3 threes. Hunter Green called that a great confidence builder, and it is. That's his job. Eric, we were watching the game last week, and he had 2 good looks. And they were, Eric, as a shooter, when they go long like that and they leave your hand, they feel good. You've had those shots go when they leave your hand, they go long. But those are the ones on the rim. Those are going to go in. He made some shots. Is he going to get a lot of playing time? Maybe not. But he's still a guy that, if you need Hunter Green talked about this today when I talked to him. Maybe you use him as a decoy. Bring him in, use him as a decoy, roll someone to the basket. Those are things that a team with depth or have those kind of riches, and you start thinking about things, about the things that the options that you have. And with the depth, it gives head coach Richard Pitino a lot of different options the way they played on Monday. They've got to keep it up. But the potential we saw, one of the Lobo fan for a long time, thought this is the most depth they've had since Coach Alford. Now, my thing is, okay, let's calm down, right? But is it out of the realm to say that? I don't know. We'll see. But even those people saying that, these are longtime Lobo fans, that's the kind of buzz around the program right now. But Ryan, to your comment, I think Jamal Mashburn Jr. and Jalen House, those are still, the bus drivers of the New Mexico offense. I don't think there's any question about it.
Yeah. Let me add something too real quick, Ed, just because you kind of brought it up. But you mentioned just kind of the depth, right? And some of the scoring options, some of the new additions. Like you didn't even mention Baker. Baker didn't see a ton of minutes, but that guy can score.
Mm-hmm.
Braden Applehand, kind of Mike Dominguez from Highlands made the comment with having to understand your role, right? And like just maximizing what your skill level is. Your skill is in a box, right? Like you just got to figure out what you do really good at. And if he can be that guy to come in off the bench, catch and shoot, make his 2 looks, 3 looks, what have you, a game, and spell a couple guys some of the minutes, I think he's going to do his job and he'll see kind of an increased role there. But in a whole, this team, I think that there's plenty of minutes and plenty of shots to go around. I don't see – we know what House can do. We know what Mashburn can do, right? Last year, they didn't have as many options on the table to share the ball as much as a scoring responsibility would go, right? A lot of that was kind of put onto Mashburn and House. I think at the end of the year, they kind of, to combined, contributed to almost 40% of the scoring. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. There's plenty of other options, which is a good thing, right? They don't have to rely on just 2 players to get you buckets when you got 4 or 5 guys who can do just the same.
Good point.
I think that the depth can probably win them 2 or 3 games this year. Like the games that they may have won that they blew last year. It might be whether you're on the bubble or at an at-large in the NCAA tournament. That's just my opinion. You can put me on freezing cold takes. That Twitter, you know what I'm talking about, Eric. Freezing cold takes. You can put me on there after that. Like I said, I thought Boise State was pound for pound the best team in the conference last year. Again, just a hunch, just how I felt. Quentin Webb, we had him on the show. He was great to talk to. He's a big body. He played well. I think he had 2 or 3 blocks. I'm looking at the box score in front of me. I don't want to be total stats guy. He had
I think he had 2 or 3.
He had 1 block, and I think 1 was called a goaltending. And I think George Scott was saying that
you're right.
It probably shouldn't have been a goaltend. Ed, to you enjoyed talking to him. Again, he's one of those guys in the post. He's big. These are big cats. But what did you think of how he played?
Another guy who came off the bench with some high energy. Even this summer when we talked about it, we talked to him. He said that, and Coach Pitino alluded to that. He'll do whatever it takes. You put him at the 4, he'll play the 4. Put him at the 3, he'll do that. I think I also noticed on their offense, he's a solid cutter to the basket, cuts to the basket, and those are little things that I noticed. But again, it's the energy and the athleticism. He's another one. You see him come off the bench, and the depth you mentioned. Okay, I was watching. I looked at Jeff Grammer's article. Burma Sek didn't play when his new school. Emmanuel Quach didn't play. Javante Johnson got a couple of minutes. KJ Jenkins, 3 points. Josiah Alec, I think 11 points, 8 rebounds. So the guys that we lost, they went on to other schools, and the only one really contributing is Alec. So if you think about who New Mexico has now, Toppin, Webb, Washington, Amzil, Baker, Mushila, Nelly, would you take what New Mexico has now compared to what we lost? I would say absolutely you would. So I think New Mexico is in a much better position depth-wise than maybe in many years. I can't remember either. Now, I don't want to get too ahead of myself like last year. They had a very good start. And then one of the things you mentioned, Ryan, depth at the end of the year, maybe New Mexico got a little bit tired and teams started adjusting defensively to what they were doing. And New Mexico didn't have the depth to adjust back. Javante Johnson was, God bless him, okay wing. He was okay. He started picking it up towards the end of the year. But is Jamal Baker a better wing than him? Is Donovan Dent a more explosive addition to that lineup than he was? So I think the players New Mexico has definitely they've definitely improved their roster tremendously from last season, and we're going to see that tomorrow when they play St. Mary's, just how much they beat St. Mary's there last year. So we'll have to see what happens tomorrow night.
Side note, this was a name I hadn't heard in a while who just left abruptly like 10 or 11 games into the season last year, who might have helped them off the bench, was Jalen Tovar. And I'm quoting the Journal here. He transferred last November to Southern Utah, then to Detroit Mercy, is now at NAIA Langston in Oklahoma. So I think there's an end quote, and from the Journal. I don't know. There's got to be something wrong there. But yeah, I was reading that article this morning. I was reading that. Yeah, I'm 36-year-old, still buys the newspaper. Eric, to you, what did you think about Quentin Webb's play?
Yeah, Quentin Webb has the potential to be a really good player. Redshirt freshman, ton of athletic ability, right? He's long, he's strong. He moves well for being, 6'6", 6'7", laterally. He's quick. I was actually talking to one of my buddies about him this morning. Bobby Trujillo here, shout out. But he told me that he's like, this guy gives me kind of like the Tony Snell vibes. Like, I don't know if it was just because he looked like him, he kind of showed the same size, but Webb has that athletic ability. He has a good shooting stroke, but the guy can get to the rim. He was like above the rim. He was throwing down some dunks. When Snell was that young as a freshman, I don't think that he was kind of that dominant or that physically gifted, right? This kid's physically gifted. He's going to come off the bench. I think he's going to see his role increase as the season goes along. And yeah, I think the potential is really high for him, and he's kind of under the radar right now. So let's keep him a secret. How about that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. By the way, I thought you were rapping Baby Got Back there for a second. When you said long and strong, and I almost finished it because everybody knows the word for that song. Anyway, to St. Mary's, which probably might be considered the mid-major game of November. I don't know. I haven't seen the entire schedule. I'm pretty up to beat with what UNM's doing. Obviously, I just can't keep track of all the mid-majors. But St. Mary's, for the first time in 22 years or something, Gonzaga is not picked to win the West Coast Conference. That's a big deal. I mean, what Gonzaga has lost the last 2-3 years is just, holy moly. I kind of thought last year was going to be their year where they were under the radar. And I picked them to win the championship. They got to Elite Eight and they lost to eventual champion UConn, who just demolished everyone. St. Mary's is number 23 in the country. UNM ended their 23-game home winning streak last year, which was a school record for St. Mary's. UNM's 3-1 against St. Mary's lifetime. So remember that. I think Alfred beat him one year. Randy Bennett has done a tremendous job there. I don't think that Mark Few is, again, not disrespecting Mark Few, but that conference is very good. You have national recognition with St. Mary's and Gonzaga. Santa Clara is pretty good. San Francisco was in the tournament 2 years ago. I think the West Coast Conference got 3 or 4 teams in. What to expect. Here's Coach Pitino on St. Mary's.
Yeah, it's a game we scheduled because we struggled to find, although we have some really good opponents, I don't know any of them are going to be quad ones, except for St. Mary's, I would assume would be. Santa Clara certainly has potential. They've been consistently really, really good. But we just couldn't find anything. And although I didn't want to go back there after just doing it, nobody's built a more consistent program. So it is a terrific opportunity to see if we can go steal one on the road. but we also know that's one of Coach Bennett's best teams. So I wanted to challenge our guys. Hopefully it's a good experience. And I talked to Coach Bennett about maybe returning something here, starting something here, because I think they're two really good programs on the West Coast.
I think that's crazy, the kind of struggle that the coaches at this university have had recently and trying to get somebody to come play here. The two guys to watch out for. They have a 7'1" guy, a 6'10" guy, and another 6'10" guy. But the two guys to look out for are Aiden Mahaney. He's the guard from last year. And then I don't want to butcher this guy's name, so I went to smcgales.com. Alex Dukas. I thought that's what it was from the tournament last year. Mahaney, he's 30 minutes a game, 13 points per game, 2 assists. Alex Dukas is 31 points a game, 31 minutes a game. Let me get this straight. 12 points a game, 4 rebounds a game. So these are your two studs. And then Michael Saxon at center, 31. That's the guy I remember. 31 minutes a game, 11 points per game, 7 rebounds per game. And the thing with St. Mary's, they are very maybe FIU comparable or identical twins, maybe. They didn't lose anybody. I mean, FAU got everybody back, and they were a young team. And they look good tonight in the Barstool Sports Invitational. But George Scott said it on this podcast, our last episode, that they've probably got that game circled there for what UNM did last year. I think this is a must-have game for UNM. I know that's cliche and like you should win every game. I think this is a must. This is a game they have to have. Maybe with what St. Mary's does when you're at the end of February, early March. This is not an easy game. This is very, God, I sound cliche. Eric, I'm throwing you. I think this is a big game, and it's a game that UNM wins. And I don't know if they win. Obviously, after what everybody saw the other night, that's a different thing. But St. Mary's beat and I'm going to butcher this, and I apologize. They beat. I wonder what the line on this game was, because I'm sure they probably they covered it by times 3. Cal State Santanasalas, the Warriors. I mean, no disrespect. They were up 50-11 at halftime. They won the second half 57-17. You do the math there. They won 107-28. Eric, what do you know about this team? And I know you're high on UNM, so the ball is in your court.
Yeah, no, I am really high on UNM. That Aiden Mahaney is really good. He was a freshman last year. He kind of came up into the scene and was a big-time contributor for them last year. But St. Mary's really flourishes on playing a tight defense, right? Giving a lot of the other opponents fits on the defensive side. And a lot of that was attributed to, I'm going to space his name, and I just had it saved, but it was Kyle Bowen. Kyle Bowen was kind of like their defensive prowess last year. And then they also lost Logan Johnson, who was kind of like an athletic guard that they relied on, kind of their slasher, off-guard, two-guard guy. So they did lose some key pieces to last year's team. They do have a lot coming back. You mentioned Mahaney and Dukas, and then that other guy, Max, what was the Saxon? He's kind of like their defensive eraser right around the rim.
I was on mute. Mitchell
all
Saxon.
3 of those players were named a first-team all West Coast Conference. So I think a lot of people are really high on this team based off of last year's success and what they have coming back. But when you look at this team and you just kind of read some of the metrics, they're one of the slower tempo teams. They're going to kind of, I wouldn't say whisk you to sleep, but they are a good ball movement team. Their guards are really good at doing that 3-man weave and just kind of finding off-ball movements, backdoor cuts, going inside and doing some damage there. But they do take their time, right? And I think they're going to win the possession battle and kind of, I don't know how to say this, but it's basically minimizing the game with how many total possessions, right? Like, because they are played at a slower pace. But you look at UNM, right? And I'm going to go back to last year a little bit. They struggled with UNM because UNM had that 3-guard lineup. If you remember clearly, Donovan Dent, that was kind of his coming out party. And they struggled defending the 3-guard lineup because they didn't have the guys capable of doing that. St. Mary's goes big. They have some long, lanky guys, but they just couldn't defend the 3 guards. So with the UNM lineup the way it is now, with how deep they are, and then with the full court press and kind of picking up the tempo, guys want to get out and run. This is going to be kind of a bad matchup for St. Mary's, and that's just my opinion. I know this is a UNM heavy podcast. I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can, but when you're looking at from like pace of game kind of play, like I played on a team where you had a lot of guards that like to run up and down. Like that's not St. Mary's game. If this turns into a track meet, like UNM might win by 10 or more, right? I think you can kind of throw that first game out the window because I don't know really who that team was. I just know St. Mary's is really good and effective with taking care of the ball and putting teams to sleep with their offense and then playing good defense. But
I marked that down. That's the 35-minute and 9-second mark for you saying they're going to win by 10. I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
And that's not a bad thing. I'm just doing it.
Quote me, don't quote me on it. I just feel like the pace of play, right? I think it's going to come down to this 3-guard matchup. The Lobos having a lot of depth, having a lot of physicality, them liking to move the ball. This could turn into a fun game. It's just kind of 2 different styles of play. And Ed, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like we talked about it with George Scott, right? Like having the three guards in the lineup. It's fun, man. They like to get out and run. They like to push the ball. You got Toppin who can get out and run too. You got Mustafa and Zil who could probably get out and run. I think you're going to see a different Lobo style of basketball this year, and I'm excited for it.
They've got to be able to, St. Mary's, he's got to be able to guard the basketball. Dukas had a big game last year against New Mexico. Randy Bennett, you mentioned him, in his 23rd year, has been the 5-time West Coast Conference Coach of the Year, 10 NCAA appearances, 7 NIT appearances. I think they've gone to the postseason 16 straight times. So you got to think, Coach. Now, we mentioned this, Ryan, one of the things you said about New Mexico, you feel like they have to have this game. I wouldn't say that, but because their schedule, the rest of the schedule isn't as strong. We said that. The Santa Clara's, they play Santa Clara, they play Pepperdine. This is the one game that people are going to be pointing to. So for that reason there, do they have to have it? I don't know. But people, if they don't get it, and then later on, they win 20 or 24, and then people are going to say, they're going to circle that and say, well, they strength the schedule, So for that reason there, I don't know if I'd say they have to have it. They'd be nice to get it, to get a big win like that on the road. But remember, they did break St. Mary's winning streak on their home floor last year. Randy Bennett, we just mentioned, is a heck of a coach. But personnel-wise, and I think one of the things you pointed out, Eric, it's not a good matchup for them as far as speed. New Mexico can speed that game up, and so they're going to have to guard the basketball and keep those guards in front of them. One of the things you mentioned, last year, you mentioned a coming out party for Donovan Dent. It was Jalen House had 12, Jamal Mashburn, or House had 17, Mashburn had 12. Dent, 5 of 8 shooting, 1 of 2 from the free throw line, 13 points. New Mexico shot 25 of 51 from the field for 49%, 5 of 10 from 3, 14 of 16 from the free throw line. Pretty good stats there offensively. They finished the game off when they needed to. So I think it's a good matchup for New Mexico. One of the things that was it that John Fanta that said New Mexico picked for the Final Four, which we all looked at that and said, Charles Barkley's the last guy to say New Mexico would go to the Final Four. They lost their first round game to Harvard. We saw how that went, 1977-78.
I got to interrupt you there, Ed. I've been saying for 10 damn years that Barack Obama picked them to go to the Final Four, and I'm usually like keen on that kind of stuff. I looked it up today. He had them in the Sweet 16, so it was just Chuck. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but I had to correct myself because I was full of what.
No, that's okay. But I'm hesitant to say that they're going to win. I think it's going to be a really good game. I'm hoping, of course, that they do. But I think Eric, you made a lot of good points as far as the physical matchups. I do think they favor New Mexico, but the size is the one thing that concerns me because St. Mary's does have some very good size. And New Mexico, you mentioned Nelly Jr. Joseph, still kind of a work in progress. One guy I do want to mention, Mustafa Amzil. I still think he's struggling a little bit with the flow in the offense, shooting at the pit. He did get a dunk in transition. And Eric, I think as a shooter, when you miss shots, but you see the ball go through the rim, it helps your confidence. And so I'm kind of anxious to see what he's going to bring tomorrow. They need him. They need some contribution from him offensively. I don't know that we'll see him get more than 4 rebounds a game. He's not a physical guy. But Eric, to your point, I think the matchups do favor New Mexico physically, but the size inside for St. Mary's does concern me a little bit.
Yeah, Lobos are 5.5 point underdogs. Did I see that right?
Damn it. I was about to say that.
Sorry, I stole your thunder.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. The spread opened at 4.5. The St. Mary's Gales, who I've got no issue with the Gales. I like St. Mary's as a team, but their mascot looks like a steroid up Scott Stapp. They're going to, if somebody listens to that from St. Mary's, they're going to come back and hit me with that. I like St. Mary's. I like the West Coast Conference. I'm not hating. I just think that mascot looks just like my favorite mascot, Rowdy, the Dallas Cowboys mascot. Yeah, he's the best looking of the bunch in the NFL. That was not funny and sarcasm there. Because you guys are Cowboy fans. Yeah, so it was 4.5, and then it got to 5 as of right now. This is Caesars Sportsbook. The over-under, if I was a betting man, which I am, is 42.5. That's a bit high unless UNM gets out and runs. That's the only way I can see that this is not favorable to UNM. It's just what they do. If I were betting that, I'd probably take the under. 5.5 is a snake line, man. That's scary. If you're betting, that scares me. Kind of a bit of a pricey. You're paying the juice there with minus 211 for St. Mary's. New Mexico's the underdog at plus 174. $100 wins you 274. I'd just take the under if we're going to do that. But yeah, I'm not shocked St. Mary's is favored. I thought maybe it might be at 7 or 8 just because of their record at home. What's the name of their arena? I meant no disrespect. It's intimate like the Pit. Oh man, I feel terrible. University Credit Union Pavilion. I thought it had a different name, but that arena is, when you see it on TV, it's like a high school gym. Like, people are on top of you, and when they play Gonzaga, man, that's one of my games of the year is when Gonzaga goes to Moraga. That's one of the games to watch, but it's intimate. And, again, what UNM did last year, and I know I already mentioned it on this podcast, that game might just be, on Randy Bennett and those guys' radar from last year. I think it's going to be a good game. We had Nick Lorenzen on, and he mentioned that, hey, that's where I'm going to be in front of ESPN Plus, 8:00 Mountain Standard Time on Thursday, November 9th, is watching UNM at St. Mary's.
Yeah. Let me just make another point too, real quick, Ryan, because
Go ahead.
Ed got me all fired up, and I started looking at their size. Right, they have Dukas is 6'7", Jefferson at 6'8", Saxon is 6'10". They have another 6'8" and a 6'6" coming off the bench. Texas Southern had 6'11", 6'10", 6'9", 2 6'8". They started 3 guys over 6'8" against UNM, and the Lobos didn't have any problem out rebounding them by I think 10 or 15 rebounds. So that's just a key stat to keep track of. If you're keeping tallies at home and you're wanting to turn it into a drinking game, every time the Lobos get a rebound, you got to take a drink. So it's a kind of a big focus. I know that Toppin finished close to a double-double. Nelly, I don't know how many rebounds he finished with, but Webb also had 11 rebounds. There's some guys on this team that can rebound, and that was something they struggled with last year. So it's more of a team-focused effort, I think. And that's going to be kind of a key statistic that's going to give the Lobos some extra possessions.
Only argument I might make to that is, Eric, that's a good point. I'd say St. Mary's bigs are probably better than Texas Southern's.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Rebounding advantage is rebounding advantage. And, I think the other thing you mentioned, when you want to run and play up tempo, you have to get the rebounds. You have to rebound. That's the other thing we're not even talking about is the quick outlets and being able to run the floor. You've got a big like top end that can get the rebounds, pass on the outlet, and run up the floor, and maybe rim run, finish at the rim. We haven't seen fully what Nelly can do yet. I think Ryan made a good point that he's still probably adjusting. He's only been here, 3 weeks? So I don't think we've seen the full Nelly Jr. Joseph yet, and I'm looking forward to that. But yes, rebounding, they did out-rebound Texas Southern, but I think we all agree St. Mary's is a little bit different of a team than Texas Southern.
It's very funny. It's very funny you guys are talking about rebounding. Our friend Jacob Neff, who's a gambling guru, because it's his family lineage. We in our office pool, we finished first. We finished first and second in the tournament last year, in the bracket challenge, and obviously we had a distinct advantage. Again, he and I just split, and I got to give him, he's my boy. I got to give him props. He picked UConn to win the national championship, and we were just like, yeah, let's split the pot. So we did. And I had Gonzaga, and we both finished 1 and 2. And as I'm watching tonight, college basketball again, I was watching Penn and Bucknell, and Bucknell used to, I forgot what conference they're in. They used to get into the tournament, and they were sneaky good. And they were playing Penn, who's got a very good team in the Ivy League, and Penn just out-rebounded them, and it was teams in the tournament just out-rebounding them. It's super cliche, but I mean, this might come down to who has more rebounds tomorrow night. That's all I'm going to say. Not sure if you guys have any final thoughts now, but I am excited to watch this game.
As we're recording this podcast, UNLV is losing at home to Southern 58-34 with 13 minutes left in the second half. I know a lot of people were high on this UNLV team coming into this year. They still got a lot of work to do. They got that Deaton Thomas, true freshman. I don't know how many minutes he has up to this point, but just a score to keep track of. I'm wondering what it's going to finish at, but not looking good for the running Rebs early in the season.
Well, that's a tough deficit right there.
That's rough. I am in Boise this weekend. The Lobos are back home against UT Arlington out of the WAC next Thursday, I want to say, which is, even though I've enjoyed college football and college basketball and hockey more than whatever the NFL is, primetime NFL games have to offer Roger Goodell, not like he's listening to this rinky-dink podcast, but no, I do this all the time.
I think we're a little bit better than Rinky Dink.
Yeah, we are better than Rinky Dink. I'm just, you know me. They play UT Arlington November 16th. I looked this up today. You would have thought this. So next Thursday, I am going to the Boise State UNM football game in Boise, Idaho. Boise, not Boise, Boise. I've learned that when you work with people in that city and state. So we'll probably be back at it, next Monday night or Tuesday. I mean, it seems to be Toledo's a good, but I mean, man, I'm not being a homer or biased. They get UC Santa Barbara, St. Mary's, and Texas Southern, and those are, I think, your tournament teams before the non-con, and then obviously they get what's left of the national runner-up in San Diego State, and then you get Boise State, who I might be. I don't know. I enjoyed talking to Leon Rice and those guys. So again, I'm being biased. I always enjoy it. I'm in favor of the good conversation, which is now why I'm rooting for Western New Mexico, Ed, because of Mark Bunker.
Yeah.
But after this game, it's kind of, to me, it seems like smooth sailing. So I'm excited for this game. I got to turn the TV right off when this game's over, because I'm getting on a 5:15 a.m. flight to Boise. I'm glad we're back at it, guys. I don't know if you have anything else left to say, but I'm glad it was the three of us again talking basketball.
No, great job, guys. It's Eric brings in a whole other dimension because he knows the game really, really well played, and played on that championship team of Capital. Knows the game very, very well.
Ed, it's like training camp. We're tired of hitting each other. Now we've got Eric back, because all we do is conduct the interviews. So
it's good to have him back.
No, it's good to be back, guys. I'm glad basketball season's back in full swing. Just college basketball in general, right? Even the NBA, I'm excited about a little bit too. So
No.
No, I love college basketball. I can't get enough of it now. And the gambling aspect.
And yeah, all the degenerate gamblers out there, Ryan, just for you, buddy.
Yeah, we know. All right. Hey, on behalf of Eric Moulton and Ed Nunez, my name is Ryan Tamori. Hey, thanks for listening to the Pit Press Podcast.